Here I am in the office. I'm not a developer. Sam Devine. I run a podcast agency. I've been in construction. I was a camp counselor. I guided canoe trips up into the Arctic. I've done a lot of different things, but I did try to put out some software a few years ago, and in the process, I met a really smart friend who now has a service really, not a product, a suite of different products and a service that I find super intriguing. I think it's a really clever use of large language models and AI, and I'm trying to help promote that service and explain to people why this would be a good fit for a lot of small to medium businesses because of its privacy and usefulness. But anyway, so here we go. I have a list of questions that we've been asked over the last few weeks as we try and explain this to people. And I'm just going to do my best to answer those questions as quickly and concisely and honestly as possible. Again, not a developer, but not new to the service industry. And this is a service that we are providing for people. And there are multiple facets to it. And hopefully you'll understand what it is we're looking to do here. And I'm going to try and do it in the course of one spotted cow. So for you Wisconsinites, I'm in Minnesota, but I've got a friend who brought the spotted cow over from Wisconsin. And so I've got this long to answer these questions that are sitting in front of me. And there's a lot of them. And they're all about AI. They're all about large language models. They're all about RAG, or how you use RAG. So that's Retrieval-Augmented Generation. Open WebUI, which is a really cool service, and some of the other related things. So here we go, as quickly as possible. Question number one, what is an LLM and what can one do for me? A large language model is what we think of when we think of ChatGPT or DeepSeek or Claude or any of these different services that are out there now where you can ask a question and you can make prompts that will better answer questions for you into a computer system, and it'll spit out some sort of an answer for you. A large language model is in and of itself not smart. It lacks sort of human ambition, intuition, wisdom. But what it is a highly trained piece of software that will give you answers to things from within its own database. And it does this by, maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but I'll explain a little bit. When they're training these models, they put just boatloads, tons and tons of data into them, words and documents and information, sentences, paragraphs, full papers, all of these things. It absorbs that and it starts to learn word association. How close is this word to another word? And how often does that instance occur? And what does it all mean? And so it gets really good, not at actually understanding things. That's general artificial intelligence, or AGI, so artificial general intelligence. Yeah. Anyway, that's different. But what it is it's a human trained, machine learned thing where the large language model and the way they're trained and the multiple different versions of them that exist are better at understanding different parts of human language and word correlation. And so they are a lot of fun. You can sit and, you can go on ChatGPT public and ask it a bunch of questions, and it answers these things in a semi-reasonable kind of human tone. And you can ask it to help me build a business plan for business X that I'm creating. Go Nuts Donuts. And I want to sell donuts in a small shopping mall. And what kind of things would I put into a business plan? And can you lay that business plan, that outline out for me? And it does a pretty good job of that. It really does. But it also asks that same question twice. And it's going to give you two different versions. Start asking it other questions and it'll start hallucinating answers for you and stuff. So there are limitations, but the amount of computing power that it took to build that LLM and what that large language model can do is super impressive. So people are putting LLMs and AI to use to do important things for themselves. And we'll get into that later. So what is an LLM and what can it do for me? It can do a lot of things. It cannot fix all your problems. It will not replace your job in and of itself. It can augment your job. It can help you do your job, but you can't just let it write papers for you and not verify the information in them, and you have to edit. It still needs the human. Next question. What is RAG and why should I care about it? RAG is Retrieval-Augmented Generation. And what Retrieval-Augmented Generation is, in a nutshell, my understanding anyway, is if we look at the large language model itself as this little brain that's been trained by computer scientists who feed it just huge amounts of data and then train it on what all of that data means, it in and of itself isn't super smart, but it's got a lot of information that's been poured into it. And it's got the ability, what they're doing on top of just that information is giving it the ability to sort of think, right? And what RAG does, Retrieval Augmented Generation, is it uses the power of that thing that they've created, that little brain, and it says, okay, you've got a bunch of knowledge and you're really smart about certain things about language, but now here's a set of data or a collection of documents, information, tables, charts, whatever it is. And I want you to index all of this. And when I ask you, smart little brain, a question, I don't want you to go into your own archives. I want you only to answer the questions that I ask in relation to this information that I give you. So let's say I work with the Federal Acquisitions Regulations, the FAR, or I work with medical records, or I work with legal documents or government agencies. I can't ask the LLM to answer questions about these documents that need to stay private or are too current to be a part of their existing database, any of that. I can't ask it questions. It will get it wrong, but it will hallucinate an answer for me. But with Retrieval Augmented Generation, with RAG, I can tell it, here's a set of documents, and that can be pretty lengthy, like the equivalent of several books worth of information. And I can say, somewhere in this is the information I want. And I want you to only look at this. And I want you to tell me where that information is. And now I can start to ask it the same type of questions you'd ask regular ChatGPT, like, all right, can you summarize the parts that you found? And it'll give you citations and stuff like that. So it's really cool. So RAG is cool. Retrieval Augmented Generation is cool. You have to know what you're doing to use it, but it's worth looking into. It's a powerful tool for businesses. What is Open WebUI and what can you do with it? Open WebUI is a open source interface that looks a lot like what you're used to when you hop on Claude or Llama or DeepSeek or ChatGPT. It's just that interface. Just on one side, a set of controls, we'll call them, and then in the center, a place where you can enter prompts and questions. So it's just the interface. And Open WebUI is, if you're a developer, you're not going to like this, but I'm going to say multimodal, we'll say, interface that can interact with different LLMs. It's just the way you access that LLM. It's the way that you interact with it. And there's some powerful tools within it as well. It's like the control panel that you're working with. And then behind that is the little brain that you're trying to talk to. So anyway, Open Web UI, you can look it up. Interesting product, open source, ever-changing, very well supported, good stuff. Can AI use ever truly be private and safe? The answer is yes. If you want your company's data to be safe and secure, you have to put a version of a large language model on a machine running, like a computer running in your company. And then you can train that model to look at your data and all this stuff. And it's called fine tuning. And there's a whole bunch of stuff to it. But yes, you can bring the power that they've created with these large language models into a private setting and make it safe. If you're using the stuff, like, you wouldn't want to allow public ChatGPT or Claude or any of them to get a glimpse of your private company files. If you don't want it to ingest them, to absorb them, because it will. It's just the way that it works. That's the covenant or the arrangement you make with them is, if I let you look at this stuff, you can use it to train your models. So privacy and safety, it is achievable. If you're not expert on it, then you have to reach out to a company like ours, like Open Archive, and we'll just tell you what's safe and what's not safe. And if you need a private way of doing it, we can help you get there. Some of that's not even terribly expensive. You can be private and safe using AI, and you really should care about that in most cases. In fact, that's like the number one thing people are worried about with AI is its safety and privacy, what it's going to do. They know they need to use it, but they also don't know how. So that's what we're here for. Can I trust my documents won't become part of the LLM or AI? You can trust that they will become part of it. If you transmit your documents from your company over the web to some, free version of ChatGPT or something, they've got it. That's theirs. If you transfer your documents to a private version of it, whether in-house or over the web, then no. Then you can trust that your documents remain private. It is possible. It's not even that hard. It's just you have to know what you're doing, and you should consult someone who knows how to make that happen for you so that maybe you don't give away some sales records or, some of your private proprietary documents or your customers' information or any of that stuff. Figure out how not to have that happen. But yes, you can trust that those documents are safe or your information is safe under the right circumstances. How much would it cost to set up my own server to run a private large language model? If you were to do this in Office, hardware alone, probably $2,500 to, let's say $10K, something like that. $2,500 to $10,000 to get the hardware necessary to run a large language model. And that has a lot to do with the graphics processing and NVIDIA and all these other things that, if you're into this, you already know this. If you're not, it's a lot to explain, so I just won't do it. But yes, you can absolutely do it. Then there's the software side of it where you need to put together these components like Open WebUI and several other different bits of open source software that are free to use, well supported, growing. They've got people working on making them better. There's a lot of great open source software out there that we all use all the time that we maybe didn't even realize was open source when we first started using it. But if you're going to do this in-house in your own office, you've got to have someone on staff who understands this type of technology quite well, or you've got to use a service like we provide that gets you set up, maintains it for you. Those are kind of your options. And you might spend another $500,000. I mean, companies, it depends on the size of your company. It depends on how many employees you have, how much data you have, what you want out of it. But the big companies most of them went all in a few years ago and spent millions really to get large language models trained on their data, fine-tuned to their data. And some of that was, I'm sure it was cool, but it's not necessarily benefited them in the ways they thought. But the costs have come down a lot. So don't get fooled and spend a ton of money, but there's still development behind it. So there's hardware, some software, and some development behind it. Expect $5 to $20,000, something like that. Are some large language models better than others? Yes, without question. In fact, the way the large language models are built with the documents that they're fed with, the information they're fed with, it's not like they just go and take the entire internet and put it in there and it's all smart. It takes engineers training them. It takes specifying which documents or which languages and which things go into them. So there's all sorts of factors that go into it, which is good because therefore, like, some are more proficient at legal work. Some are more proficient at coding work. Some are better at marketing and business stuff. And new ones come out all the time. So, there's a race to make the best large language models. That's not going to stop anytime soon. And they're working toward sort of general intelligence with this stuff, but we're probably a long ways off, I would hope. And the computing power that takes is massive. But anyway, I would say yes, some large language models are better for certain things. Some are better for others. There's websites dedicated to telling you, we can point you in the right direction. In fact, I'll post a link below to a place that'll tell you if you're right now, currently, if you want to do this with it, this is the best model to use. Why is it less expensive to access LLMs through a service like ours, like Open Archive? That's a little complicated, but if you have a company and you want to get each of your employees access to like ChatGPT Pro or DeepSeek Pro or any of these, the pro versions of them, they do it on a per seat basis, and it ends up being, and there's tokens, and it's very confusing. But let's just say it ends up being around $200 a month at minimum to access the paid version of any of these LLMs. The way that they set it up for developers and agencies like ours is we have a different type of license that we can offer you access to 5 or 10 different large language models, whatever, any of them that we want, really, at a steep discount, because we're sort of buying in bulk, right? We're buying to be able to package this up and let groups of people in. So ultimately, depending on the size of your company and how many licenses you're buying, going through a service like ours, that alone could save you a ton of money, plus open up the possibility of using, let's say, 5 different LLMs rather than buying pro access to just one. If you're curious about how that works, or if you really want to know more, just reach out. I can answer it, but it's really because, we're accessing it through an API versus the public facing side. And for us, there are data limits. There are things that, like if you're setting it up to, with a bot of some sort, an automated thing that's searching it constantly, you will run up against a limit and it'll cost more. But under almost all circumstances, no small business is going to do that. Even if you've got 5 or 10 employees, you're just not going to come close to running out of tokens and stuff like that. So yes, it is actually less expensive to use us than it is to buy multiple pro licenses, especially multiple pro licenses for multiple employees to multiple different LLMs. How do I prepare for the future when new models come out? Good question. So if you're one of the companies that fine-tuned a large language model on your data so that you had this use of this powerful computing, indexing, algorithmic thing that they built, that little brain that's super smart at doing certain things, you are kind of stuck with the version that was trained on. So let's say you were ChatGPT 3.5, now 4.0 is out, now 4.5 is coming out later, or something, it's always going to be the next version. Your data is kind of trapped in that early version. And maybe that works for you, maybe it doesn't. In our way of doing things, and this has just evolved over time, and especially with the use of this RAG system and things like Open WebUI, if you put your data into collections, if you put documents into collections, if you put things in a place, we can swap out the underlying large language model that indexes and searches and interacts with that data. So ultimately, preparing for the future is making sure that the LLM that you're using, or the service that uses an LLM to interact with your data, allows for the opportunity to update that LLM as they come out, much like we do at our Open Archive. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. That's one way to prepare. What is fine-tuning is another question. I think I already kind of explained that. Fine-tuning is using an existing LLM, copying it basically so it's in a private setting, and then tinkering with and tweaking the way that it works to fit your company's needs, and then giving it new data that you want to keep private. The problem there is the fine-tuning has been proven to sort of break the system a little bit. It hasn't proven to be as effective as people thought it would be, and it actually tends to cause trouble. So there again, you're prone to hallucinating answers to things. It's all cool stuff, but the stats are out on it. It has not worked terribly well. This RAG system and swapping out new LLMs when needed has proven to be more effective. So there you go. How do I avoid getting ripped off for AI services? I don't know. I would say don't not get accustomed to AI. Don't avoid it, because if you do, you're missing out on a very, very powerful tool. It's like when, many, many years ago when companies could buy a computer for the first time, and they were buying a computer from IBM or Compaq or whoever, right? And they were wondering, like, gosh, is this a good investment? And the numbers, it's got 64 megabits of RAM or something, like tiny, tiny, tiny bits of computing power. But the companies that adopted these things early on did do better than the ones that didn't. And so with AI, I know a lot of people are concerned about where it's headed, the security, the safety, what it can do for them, whether it's a waste of time, all of that. In order to not get ripped off, which was the question that was asked, I would say find reasonable entry points, make sure that it provides some value for you. Be smart about it, but don't avoid it, because that's not you can't bury your head in the sand on this one. This stuff is a productivity tool that is helping a lot of people, and it can help your company if you need to interact with complex sets of words in old company documents or big government regulations or state regulations. I was in construction, like the International Building Code. Like if you want to look through those things and interact with them in a meaningful way, this stuff really works great for that. So don't avoid it, but be smart. Reach out to us, we'll answer. Can we manage our own private server and LLM in-house? Absolutely, you can. We will help you get set up. We can point you in the right direction of what equipment you would need. We can help you get the software put together. We could offer you a custom package that helps you get there. If you've got someone in-house who can manage that, great. And then it just saves some of the cost. I mean, you're just not having to pay for the human side of the agency, which is us helping you manage your servers and your LLM in-house. So you can get there, and it's not incredibly difficult, but you do have to have someone who is sort of a, senior level IT person, programmer, engineer. How can I be more ready for future advancements? I mean, just play around with this stuff. Use it. Give it a try. Don't be afraid of it. I mean, it's all changing quickly. It's all moving quickly. I would say, avoid super long-term contracts with people. Don't get too overly fatigued, bounce around to too many things. Become more familiar with it. Use it more. Reach out to people like myself and Reese and listen to Ask Clever Over Coffee How AI Built This. It's a show I produced that got me into this. That show will teach you quite a bit about AI and how to prepare for it. Can I really be more efficient with private AI? Will I actually save any time? Or am I just going to have to learn some complicated and ever-changing technology? No, you can actually save time. You can actually save money. You can make more money. You can introduce efficiencies into your company, especially if you're a company of, 5, 10, 15, 50 people, like a smaller mid-market. I would say not, if you're 50 plus employees, what we do can help you as well, but you're going to need a fully custom package. That's a lot to manage, and you're going to have to, a lot of other considerations. But if you're a relatively small company that could benefit from this, it's less than the cost of an employee. And per year, what we would offer you would be less than the cost of an employee. And AI can do for your existing 10 employees, let's say, it can be a highly capable assistant to all 10 of them. So instead of hiring someone who would be an assistant to one or two, You can get an assistant for all 10 of them that can do a ton of research quickly and help them write effectively and help them summarize and search and interact with big volumes of information really rapidly. And that should provide you a lot of efficiency, and I would assume then help you make more money. So yes, this is it can be very good for those types of companies. Should I stop calling everything AI? Yes. If you want to get more nuanced. Otherwise, just go ahead and call it AI. Who cares? It's all AI. Machine learning's been around for a long time. Artificial intelligence has actually been around for a long time. It is taking over right now. We all see that, but it's also 98% plus of people in the United States do not use AI on a regular basis in their work. You're still on the progressive side if you're even considering it. But yes, coming up with an AI strategy right now for your business so that you and your employees understand the value and benefit of it moving forward is really important. So here it is. Is AI ruining the world? Who knows? It's humans. We're ruining the world, and we're employing AI maybe perhaps to do some of that ruining with things like deep faked political stuff, or I don't know, or three-headed fish or whatever. A lot of it's not being put to good use. This RAG, this private system, this is actually putting it to good use, and maybe that will help not ruin the world. Can I get the same thing through a pro subscription to ChatGPT or Claude? No, you cannot. You can get some aspects of it. This is different and would have cost an arm and a leg a year ago. It's now come down to the point where it's affordable enough that any small company should be looking at doing this. And is it going to come down much further? Probably not. And the reason I say that is the software we're using is open source, which is good. So the cost is low, if not free. The hardware that we're using, if you want your own privately hosted LLM on your own private server, it's kind of plateaued in a certain way. It's not really going to come down. It's still going to cost you, $2,500 to $10,000, probably 2 years from now or 3 years from now or whatever, to get hardware like that in place. And then the human hand that needs to be in it, the engineer's hand that needs to be in it, the cost of that isn't going down either. So this isn't an off the shelf quick fix. Hey, here's one product that solves all your problems. This is it's a service that we offer. You can implement some of that service yourself, but all of the different parts and components are going to be, way too complicated, way too expensive, way too hard for any small company to put this together on their own. But ultimately, this is less expensive, more reasonable, and more powerful than you can imagine, I would guess. Is my job being eliminated or enhanced by AI? And I would say this is an enhancement. This proves that your job isn't being eliminated. This is you using AI to do things more efficiently in your office. It's the equivalent of using a calculator when previously people had just used pen and paper or an abacus or something like that, honestly. Once a calculator came out, an electronic calculator, you not using the electronic calculator, maybe you were a holdout and you were the fastest abacus user around, or you could do things really well on pen and paper, but the next generation of people who came along make use of that calculator and blow your system out of the water eventually. So that's why we don't do things that way. So using this type of retrieval-augmented generation or large language models, the newest versions, staying up to date on this is sort of ensuring that your job doesn't get eliminated, because you're the one who needs to know how to make this tool work. If you know how to run the calculator, you've still got a job. There you go. That's my 2 cents. That's what I've got for you. Thanks for listening. I hope I summed that up quickly. I got to get out of here.